Hello everyone. Before we get into today's story, real quick, hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story drop. It takes 2 seconds, it is completely free, and it genuinely helps us keep making content for you. Also, drop your city or country in the comments right now. We love knowing where our community is watching from. Thank you so much. Now let us get into it. The parking garage on the 7th level of Nexus Plaza smelled like cold concrete and motor oil, the kind of place where sound moved weird and the fluorescent lights buzzed just low enough to feel like a headache. The city of Atlanta spread out beyond the open wall like a painting nobody asked for. All glass towers and blinking red lights and a sky that could not decide between night and dusk. Nova was sitting on the hood of a beat-up silver Honda that had not moved in 2 weeks because the registration had expired and she could not afford to fix that right now. She wore a sage green cropped hoodie with a bleach splatter near the hem, high-waisted black biker shorts, and chunky white platform sneakers. Her locks were pulled up into a high bun with a scrunchie that used to be someone else's. A black crossbody bag sat between her feet. She had her sketchbook open on her knees, charcoal pencil moving fast like her hand knew things her brain had not processed yet. She was not supposed to be here either. She had a studio apartment 4 blocks away. But her roommate had people over again, and Nova needed silence the way some people needed oxygen. So she came here. Level 7. Nobody ever came to level 7. She was halfway through a sketch of a face she could not stop drawing, a face she had never seen in real life, when the sketchbook slipped. It hit the concrete and slid 3 feet across the floor, pages fanning open to every raw thing she had drawn in the last 6 months. Faces. Body studies. One page that was just the word "why" written 40 times in different sizes. She jumped off the hood. But someone else got there first. He had come from the stairwell. She had not heard him. He crouched down and picked the book up before it could slide to the edge and fall another 7 levels. He was tall, maybe late 20s, wearing a black-ribbed turtleneck, straight-leg dark charcoal trousers, and clean white low-top Jordans. His hair was cut low and sharp at the edges. He had the kind of face that looked like it had been decided on very carefully. Like someone took their time with every detail. He stood and looked at the open page. The one with "why" written 40 times. He looked up at her. She crossed the distance in 4 steps and grabbed the book out of his hands. "That's mine," she said. "I know," he said. His voice was flat. Not cold. Just honest in a way that felt like it cost him something. "I saw it fall." She clutched the sketchbook to her chest. Her heart was doing something embarrassing. "You can go now," she said. He did not go. He looked at her for one long second, then looked out at the city through the open concrete wall. "I come up here sometimes too," he said. "When things get loud." Nova said nothing. She watched him pull out his phone, check something, and then put it back in his pocket like whatever he saw did not matter. There was something about the way he moved. Not rushed. Not performing calm. Just actually in it. "I'm Caiden," he said, still looking at the city. She did not answer right away. "Nova," she finally said. He nodded once. Slow. Like that meant something. What she did not know, what she could not have known standing on level 7 with charcoal on her fingers and her whole heart exposed in a sketchbook, was that Caiden Wells was the creative director of Lumen Studio, the firm that had just been quietly hired to determine which freelance contractors the company she worked for would keep and which ones they would cut. He had already seen her portfolio. He just did not know it belonged to her yet. The elevator behind them dinged. Neither of them moved. 3 days passed before Nova saw him again. She had convinced herself it was random. Guy on a parking garage. City of 4 million. She would never cross paths with him again. She had almost made peace with it. Then she walked into the freelancer briefing session at Lumen Studio and saw him standing at the front of the room. Same turtleneck energy, different color. This one was a deep rust orange. Black trousers again. Same Jordans. He was writing something on a whiteboard when she walked in, and he turned at the sound of the door, and she watched his whole face do something she could not name. He recognized her. She was wearing a butter yellow oversized denim jacket over a white fitted tee, wide-leg olive cargo pants, and black Converse. Her locks were down this time, falling past her shoulders. She had a small gold hoop in her nose and a tote bag over one arm with a paint smear she had not noticed yet. She stood in the doorway for 1 full second longer than necessary. Then she walked in and sat down in the second row like nothing had happened. The session was supposed to be about creative direction and brand alignment. Nova sat there with her pen and her notebook and tried to focus on the words coming out of his mouth. They were good words. He talked about art like it was alive. Like it could breathe. Like it could leave a room if you disrespected it. She hated that she agreed with everything he said. Afterward, when everyone else filed out, he stopped next to her chair. "You didn't say you were a contractor here," he said. "You didn't ask," she said. He almost smiled. "Not quite. I reviewed your work last week," he said. "Before I knew it was yours." She looked up at him. "And?" He was quiet for a second. The honest kind of quiet. The kind people do when they are choosing between easy and true. "It was the only portfolio that made me feel something," he said. "I flagged it. For the keep list." Nova stared at him. Something warm moved through her chest and she shoved it back down immediately. "Why are you telling me that?" she asked. "Because you deserve to know your work is real," he said. "Even if the process around it isn't." She stood up and gathered her things. Her hands were doing that thing where they moved too deliberately because she was trying not to show anything. "What does that mean?" she asked. "The process around it." He looked at her for a long moment. "It means the final call isn't mine," he said. "The partners have a list too." She stopped moving. "A different list?" she asked. He did not answer. And that was its own kind of answer. She walked out into the Atlanta afternoon, the sun pressing down on everything, her chest tight with something that felt way too much like hope and way too much like dread at the same time. She made it half a block before her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text only. It said, "The partner list drops Friday. Your name is on it. Not the good one. I'm trying to fix it." No signature. But she knew. She turned around. The Lumen Studio building sat behind her, glass and steel, reflecting a sky that was turning the wrong color. She went back inside. She found him in the stairwell on the 3rd floor. He had not expected her to come back. She could tell by the way he straightened when he saw her, the way he adjusted like he was recalibrating. "You sent that," she said. No question. Statement. "Yeah," he said. "That's a conflict of interest." "I know. You could lose your position here." "I know that too." She searched his face. He was wearing the same rust turtleneck, arms crossed, back against the wall. He looked like someone who had already made peace with a consequence. "Why?" she asked. "You don't know me." He was quiet. "Then, I know your work. That page. Why 40 times? I know what that costs a person to put on paper. And I know what it costs when the people making decisions never see the human behind the file." Nova leaned against the opposite wall. The stairwell hummed with the AC, somewhere above them a door opened and closed. "The partners," she said. "Which one is making the call?" He looked at her for a beat too long. "Marcus Ellery." She went cold. Not visibly. She was good at that. But inside, something dropped straight to the floor. Marcus Ellery was her mother's former business partner. The man who had taken her mother's design firm, rebranded it, and sold it without giving her family a single dollar. The man her mother had spent 4 years trying to sue before the money ran out. The reason Nova had been doing freelance from a too small apartment instead of running the studio she was supposed to inherit. Caiden watched her face very carefully. "You know him," he said. "Not a question either." "He destroyed my family," she said. Flat. Quiet. More dangerous than loud. Caiden pushed off the wall. He moved closer. Not invading space. Just closing the distance between being two strangers and being two people in the same specific disaster. "Nova," he said. "My partnership contract with Ellery renews in 6 weeks. If I go against him on this, he will not renew it. I lose Lumen. I lose everything I built here." She looked at him. "Then why are you still standing in this stairwell?" she asked. Something moved across his face. Something real and complicated and not fully resolved. "Because I have been doing the right thing for the wrong people for a long time," he said. "And I'm tired." She should have walked away. That was the smart call. Distance. Professionalism. Self-preservation. Instead she said, what would going against him actually look like? He told her. What she did not know in that stairwell was that 20 feet above them, on the 4th floor, someone was already listening through a slightly open door. Someone who had been sent to monitor Caiden. Someone who was on Marcus Ellery's personal payroll. And they had heard everything. The morning the story broke, Nova found out through a group chat. Someone had posted a screenshot. An internal Lumen Studio message thread, allegedly between Caiden and an unnamed contractor, discussing ways to manipulate the partner review process. The contractor in the screenshots was not named. But the details were specific enough that anyone who knew the situation would know it was her. Her phone did not stop buzzing for 40 minutes. She sat on the floor of her apartment in a white cropped sleep tee and gray sweat shorts, back against the couch, locks messy from sleep, sketchbook on the cushion above her head like she had fallen asleep working again. The morning light came through the blinds in thin bars across the rug. Her coffee was getting cold. She read the screenshots 4 times. Then she called him. He picked up on the second ring. "I saw it," he said. He sounded like someone who had not slept at all. "Did you leak it?" she asked. Silence. 2 full seconds. "No," he said. "Caiden." "Nova, I did not leak it. Ellery has someone inside the building. I should have known. I should have been more careful. The screenshots make it look like I was using you," she said. "Like I came to you to manipulate the review. My name is not in there, but it does not matter. Everyone in that building knows. I know. My contracts are done. Every single one. 3 other firms I work with saw those screenshots and I already have 2 emails this morning saying they're pausing." The silence on the other end was the worst kind. The kind where someone is carrying something heavy and trying not to let you hear the weight. "I'm going to fix this," he said. "How?" she asked. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted it to. "I am going to call a full partner meeting," he said. "Today. I'm going to put the real documentation on the table. All of it. The emails from Ellery's team, the instructions to stack the cut list with certain names, all the things I have been sitting on for 8 months because I was protecting my own position." She stood up slowly. Walked to the window. Atlanta outside, gray and still waking up. "You do that," she said, "and you lose everything you just told me you built." "Yeah," he said. "Caiden. I need you to be sure. Because I am not asking you to do this." "I know you're not," he said. "That's actually why I'm going to." She pressed her forehead against the glass. Cold. There's something else, he said. His voice shifted. Lower. Bracing. What? She said. The person who leaked those screenshots, he said. It was Dara. Nova went completely still. Dara was her best friend. Her ride or die since sophomore year. The person she had called the night she first got the contract with Lumen. The only person outside that stairwell she had told about Caiden and Ellery and all of it. That's not possible, Nova said. She has been working with Ellery's team for 3 months, Caiden said. I found out this morning. I needed you to hear it from me. The cold from the glass spread through Nova's whole body. She did not cry. She just stood there, looking at the city, feeling the exact shape of a loss she had not prepared for. Go to that meeting, she said quietly. I will, he said. She hung up and stared at her own reflection in the window. The morning light made her look like a ghost of something that had not happened yet. She grabbed her jacket off the chair. Caramel brown leather, slightly oversized, the one her mother had given her. She put it on over her sleep clothes, grabbed her bag, and walked out the door. She was going to be in that meeting room. Nobody was going to tell her story without her in the room. The Lumen Studio conference room on the 8th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows and a long walnut table that cost more than Nova's rent for 3 years. 6 people sat around it. Marcus Ellery was at the far end. He wore a charcoal suit and the kind of calm that comes from a man who has never lost before and does not believe today will be different. He looked up when Nova walked in behind Caiden. Something moved across Ellery's face. Recognition. Then calculation. This is a partner meeting, Ellery said. Not open to contractors. She stays, Caiden said. He set a folder on the table. Thick. Tabbed. Organized in a way that said he had been preparing this for a long time. And you might want to close the door. What followed was 40 minutes that felt like 40 years. Caiden laid it all out. The instructed cut list. The email chain where Ellery's team had flagged specific contractors for removal based not on their work but on whether they had connections to firms Ellery considered competitive threats. Nova's mother's firm, restructured and absorbed years ago, had seated 3 of the contractors on that list. Including Nova. He put the documentation on the table. He named the source of the leak. He presented the timeline. Ellery did not deny it. He shifted tactics instead. You signed a partnership agreement, Ellery said to Caiden. This is a breach. The agreement doesn't cover fraudulent review processes, Caiden said. I had our legal team look at it this morning. Ellery's eyes moved to Nova. Your mother made poor business decisions, he said. Smooth. Almost kind. The cruelest version of the sentence. That is not my responsibility to carry. Nova had been sitting very still. She had her sketchbook on the table in front of her, closed, both hands resting on top of it. She was wearing the caramel leather jacket over her sleep clothes, locks pulled to one side, gold nose hoop catching the light. She looked like someone who had decided something before she walked in and was just waiting for the right moment to say it. My mother built something real, Nova said. And you took it because you could. And then you spent the next several years making sure anyone connected to her could not build anything either. She paused. I'm not here to relitigate that today. I'm here because I want the other partners in this room to know exactly who they're in business with. And now they do. The room was quiet. One of the other partners, a woman named Reeves who had been listening with her hands folded tight, looked down at the documents on the table and then looked at Ellery with an expression that said she had already been suspicious and was now done pretending otherwise. Ellery left the meeting 20 minutes later. He did not get up dramatically. He just gathered his things slowly, like a man conserving energy for a battle he was already repositioning for. On the way out, he stopped near Nova's chair. This is not over, he said quietly. I know, she said. I have been waiting for you to say that my whole life. He left. The door closed. The room exhaled. Caiden sat back in his chair. He looked across the table at Nova. He looked like someone who had just set down something incredibly heavy and was now figuring out what his arms were for. "You're out of Lumen," she said to him. Not a question. "Yeah," he said. "Reeves and the others will make it official, but the partnership is done." "What are you going to do?" He looked at her sketchbook on the table. Then at her. "I have been thinking about that," he said. "I know someone whose work is the only thing that ever made me feel something in a review. Someone who should be running her own studio instead of freelancing for people who do not deserve her work." Nova looked at him for a long time. "That someone does not have startup capital," she said. "That someone has documentation that could support a wrongful dissolution lawsuit against a man who destroyed her family's firm," he said. "Which is a different kind of capital." She was quiet. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "You already burned your position for someone you met on a parking garage 7 days ago." He leaned forward. Elbows on the table. Direct in a way that was not performed. "Because I have been building other people's visions my whole career," he said. "And the only time I ever looked at something and thought, this is worth the cost, it had your name on it." Nova opened her sketchbook. She turned to a blank page. She picked up a charcoal pencil. At the top of the page she wrote 2 words. She turned the book around and slid it across the table to him. It said, "Let's build." He looked at it for a long second. Then he looked up at her. And for the first time since the parking garage, since all of it, he smiled. A full one. Like something had been unlocked. Outside, Atlanta was bright and loud and going about its business. Inside that conference room, something quiet and irrevocable had just begun. Some things fall off ledges because they are supposed to land somewhere new. The end.